What up, everybody? Thanks for checking in the Brown Mamba podcast. For those of you who don't know, my name is Jackson, and this is the Brown Mamba 2016-17 NBA Preview Podcast. So this is going to be a series of 3 podcasts where I preview the upcoming NBA season and how I think each team will do. I'm going to have one for the East, one for the West, and one where I go over who I think is going to win the title, the end of season awards, and some other miscellaneous things. But before I get started, I want to break down real quick how I'm going to be doing things. So I'm going to be going over a quick recap of how each team did last season with their record, how they did on offense and defense. I'm going to take a look at the offseason moves, who they added, lost, and drafted. And I'm also going to take a look at where Vegas has them as the over-under for their win total this upcoming season and whether I agree with it or not. Then we're going to take a look at each team's starting rotation, and then I'll go ahead and get into how I think each team will do. So let's get started with how I think things are going to go in the Eastern Conference this year. Alright, so first up we got the Atlanta Hawks, who finished 40-34 last season, good for 4th in the Eastern Conference. They finished 22nd on offense, but they did finish 2nd in defense. As you may know, they added Dwight Howard, but as you may not have known, they added Jared Jack, Will Bynum, and Ryan Kelly. And again, as you may know, they did lose Al Horford and Jeff Teague, 2 guys who have been key staples in their lineup for the last few seasons. And they also drafted Taurean Prince, DeAndre Bembry, and Isaiah Cordinier. So Vegas has the Hawks winning only 44 games this year, and if we take a look at their starting rotation, I think we can see why. As we know, like I said, they did lose Al Horford and Jeff Teague, 2 guys who have been, part of the backbone of this Hawks team for the last few seasons, and so right away they're going to insert Dennis Schroeder, German Rondo. They liked how he was doing the last couple seasons, and they think it's time to throw him in the starting lineup and let him take over. But they still got, aging Kyle Korver, aging Cephalosha, and, as well as Paul Millsap played last year. He led the team in a lot of categories like points, rebounds, blocks and steals, and I think PER too. But, he's another year older and, getting up there in age. But, obviously the glaring addition they have, again, was Dwight Howard. He's going to, definitely help down low on the defense. Going to see how he is on offense. As we know, he's, burned a lot of bridges with all his different teams he's been on the last couple of seasons. But, this, is essentially his last chance at staying in the NBA, really. No one else really wanted him. Atlanta's taking a gamble on him, this being his, I guess, hometown team. But, if he, has more issues with this, then, this could be his last chance. So I think he's going to fall in line and, try to stick with the program and, just put his head down and listen to the coach and just do what they say. So they're pretty much rolling out with the same team that they had the last year. If you take a look at the bench, they didn't really make any other additions. They still got Kent Bazemore, who, did well for them last year. He'll still be a good spark off the bench. But if you just take a look, Hardaway, Humphries, Bynum, Splitter, Scott, still, like I said, it's pretty much the same team. And it's just, I think that they'll do a little bit worse last year just because the East as a whole is getting a little bit better. And, some teams have to suffer. And I just think the Hawks will be one of them. So next up, we got the Boston Celtics, who also finished 40-34. Kind of weird. But, they finished in top 10 in offense and defense, right at 10th in offense, and finishing 4th on defense, in my opinion, surprising a lot of teams. They did add Al Horford and also Gerald Green for his, second stint with the team. And they lost Evan Turner and Jared Sullinger, who, if you ask Boston fans, I guess aren't, losing any sleep over losing those 2 guys, especially Jared Sullinger. They did draft Jaylen Brown with the top pick, or not the top pick, but a top pick. Really excited about having him. And they also drafted a bunch of guys who are probably just going to be in the D-League. Gershon Yabusele, Ante Zizic, Demetrius Jackson, Ben Bentel, and Abel Nader. So like I said, the Celtics snuck up on the Eastern Conference last year, playing as well as they did. But, Vegas doesn't think they're going to sneak up on anyone this year. They have them at 52.5 wins. That's a huge swing, if you ask me. Especially for a young team, they are an extra year together, and they do have Brad Stevens. And if you take a look at this lineup, the main thing, with a guy like President Brad Stevens, a head coach, he rolled out a bunch of guard-heavy lineups, and, just the main thing you want to take a look at is, or the main thing I think to look for this season is how many guards can he play at once. And, obviously they have Isaiah Thomas, Avery Bradley, and, Marcus Smart, the first guy off the bench. 3, dynamic guards, Avery Bradley and Marcus Smart playing good defense, and Isaiah Thomas, can light it up from at any given moment. And they also have Jay Crowder. He's essentially the LeBron stopper. And I use LeBron stopper in quotes, LeBron stopper, because it's hard to stop LeBron. But every team in the East has to have a guy like that they can just throw in front and not have to double team him. So they have Crowder, and they also have Amir Johnson to set picks and get rebounds, and Al Horford, down low, really good addition for them to get them the offensive production they need down low that they wish they could have got from Sullinger, but they'll definitely be able to get that from Horford, and he'll also add some defense too down low. Surprisingly a good defender. His offense is obviously his high point, but don't sleep on Al Horford's defense. If you take a look at his numbers, he's very effective in the defensive post. But yeah, back to the guard thing. It's not out of the realm of possibility for Brad Stevens to roll out a lineup with Isaiah Thomas, Avery Bradley, Marcus Smart, and either Jaylen Brown or Jay Crowder, and Al Horford. That's essentially four little guys and one big guy. And don't even sleep on them going Isaiah Thomas, Bradley, Smart, Jaylen Brown, and Jay Crowder. Just about a 6-7 lineup and below, really, if you ask me. It's like I said, anything is possible with Brad Stevens. He really knows what he's doing, and I think he's going to take the whole pop strategy where he's going to try a bunch of different lineups this year just to see what works, see who plays well together, who doesn't. And yeah, I'm really excited for them. Even though I'm a Laker fan, I am excited to see how the Celtics will do this year. It's going to be a really fun team. All eyes are going to be on them though, so they're definitely, like I said earlier, they're definitely not going to sneak up on anyone like they did last year. But yeah, just a young, exciting team, and Al Horford's really going to help them in the long run. All right, so next up we got the Brooklyn Nets. I'm gonna try to keep this one short and sweet because we all know how they're gonna do this year. Pretty much the same as last year. Last year they finished 27th and 29th. On offense and defense respectively, bottom of the league, and you can expect them to be there again this year. Vegas has them at 21.5 wins, right at about the same as they were. And if I was putting money in it, I'd go with the under, just because this team does not look good. They're running guys who are either past their prime or just like the right at the step before passing their prime. And Jeremy Lin, Trevor Booker, Chase Budinger, Randy Foye, Luis Scola, and Gibas Vasquez. And they lost Thaddeus Young, Jared Jack, Thomas Robinson, Marco Brown, Donald Sloan, and Henry Sims. And then they drafted Kerry LeVert and Isaiah Whitehead. Like I said about the lineups, if you just take a look at this lineup, it's not going to be very effective. Jeremy Lin at the one, and then you got Bogdanovich. I do like Rondae Hollis Jefferson. It just kind of sucks that he's going to be stuck on this really, really bad team. Maybe they trade him. Who knows? And they also got Trevor Booker. And the main thing I want to talk about is with Brook Lopez. So, as you may or may not know, the Brooklyn Nets do not have any of their picks, so they don't really have any incentive to tank because all their picks are with Boston. So it's, if they tank, they're not even going to keep the pick if they, finish in the lottery or wherever. But, it's like, do they try to win? Like, because they don't have the talent to try to win. So your best trade asset is Brook Lopez, who, led the team in a lot of categories last year. He averaged 21 points last year. Which is, crazy to see nowadays, especially with how offensively inefficient majority of the NBA big men are. But he is, almost automatic down low. And like I said, he is the biggest trade asset they have. Whether or not they trade him is still yet to be seen. There hasn't been any talks or anything about it. But if I was running the Nets, I would try to get at least a first rounder for him from anywhere, just because they need any help they can get. This team is not going to do well again this year, and yeah, tough times being a Nets fan. All right, now moving on to another team who finished 48-34, the Charlotte Hornets. Surprising to me, they were a pretty efficient team last season on offense and defense, finishing 9th on offense and 8th on defense. And then in the offseason, they added Marco Bellinelli, Ramon Sessions, Roy Hibbert, Brian Roberts, and Christian Wood. And they lost Big Al, Jay Lynn, Courtney Lee, Jorge Gutierrez, and Troy Daniels. And they drafted no one. Now, Vegas has them at 40.5. Now, I don't know if they're going to win that few amount of games, but I am in agreement with Vegas in that they won't win as many games. And in my opinion, I think they're actually going to take a huge step back. Which is really disappointing for Hornets fans, just because they looked so promising last year. If we take a look at their starting rotation, they still have Kemba, who, in my opinion, should have been an all-star last season. He played really well, led the team in almost every single category. He led it in points, rebounds, and steals. They still have Nick Batum. Throughout his career, he's been up and down, up and down. One season plays well, one season doesn't. And he played well last season, so you might be looking to see that he doesn't play as well this year. And plus, he did get paid, so usually when guys get big paydays, they, usually take a little step back. MKG's back too, but who knows how his health's going to be with his shoulder, and also who knows if he fixed his shooting form. Marvin Williams, okay. I have Cody Zeller the starter right now, but I've been hearing a lot of things that I guess Roy Hibbert might be the starter too, which is just, in my opinion, a big step back. No offense from both those guys, really. The best offensive bet they have is Frank Kaminsky coming up at their big position, but even with that, he struggles too on defense. But just looking at this roster, how can you tell me that they're going to take a leap? I mean, they didn't really get better, and in my opinion, they actually got worse. Essentially the same starting five that they've had for the last few seasons. That really hasn't done much. They finished sixth in the East last year, and then they bounced in the first round. And I mean, you can't tell me that this team even makes the playoffs. I got them. Yeah, I have them not even not even making the playoffs this year, which is really disappointing considering how talented Kemba is, and how a lot of upside that guys like Kaminsky has. So I'm not a big fan of the Hornets this year, and I completely agree with Vegas that they won't win as many games. Don't know how many, but I know for sure they will win 48. And look to them for them to not even make the playoffs this year either. All right, now we move on to the Chicago Bulls. One of the more interesting teams in the East. Last year they finished 42-40, 21st on offense, 15th on defense. And then a lot of moves for the Bulls this offseason as they added D-Wade, Rondo, and Rolo. And they also got Jerry Grant, Isaiah Kane, and Spencer Dinwiddie. And as sure as everyone knows, they lost Derrick Rose, Joakim Noah, as well as Pau Gasol, Aaron Brooks, Mike Dunleavy, and Etuan Moore. Oh, and Justin Holiday. And they drafted Denzel Valentine and Paul Zipser. Now, I say they're one of the more interesting teams just because of the fact of who they lost as well as who they picked up. If taking a look at their starting lineup, Rondo and D-Wade are going to be thrown right into the starting rotation. So is Rolo, and of course, Jimmy Butler too. I guess right now they're having Taj Gibson start at the 4, but don't be surprised if Nikola or Tricola comes in and starts some games too, depending on what Hoiberg wants. But just a very interesting starting 5 in my opinion. We know what we're going to get from Taj Gibson and Rolo, but just who knows what's going to happen between Rondo, Wade, and Butler. It's going to be one of those things where there's just 3 alpha dogs on the floor at the same time, and it's just, whose team is it, really? You'd think that it's Jimmy Butler's team, considering that, the Bulls traded Derrick Rose as opposed to trading Jimmy Butler, but, D-Wade is just, people say, he might not be the alpha anymore just because, when he deferred to LeBron when LeBron was in Miami, but no offense to Jimmy Butler, but he's no LeBron, and neither is Rondo. I just don't know. I really don't know what to expect from this team. Vegas has them winning only 39.5, which is close to not even making the playoffs. I don't know if they're going to be that bad this year. Because they as we all know, they missed the playoffs last year. But yeah, it's going to definitely be interesting to watch them just to see how they play. Because, they want to run the Hoiberg offense, which to my understanding is like a spread the floor and shoot kind of offense. But, look at this team. The only real shooting you have is Dougie McBuckets and Mirotic, and sometimes Jimmy Butler when he's open. But just, I don't know where the shooting's going to come from. Some people question the hiring of Hoiberg, and that like how his style of offense doesn't fit this team, which it kind of doesn't if you look at it on paper. But with a guy like Rondo who's a floor general and a veteran like Wade, they could essentially help run some things on the floor. But yeah, I just don't know. I was really excited for Jimmy Butler after how he played last season, but he might take a slight step back, just the fact that he's going to lose touches to D-Wade and Rondo. I wouldn't be surprised if they finish around the same as they did last year, or even worse, honestly. And I would be surprised if they do better, to be honest. Even though they do have Rondo and Wade, if they had Rondo and Wade from about 3 years ago, it'd be a different story. But I like where Vegas has them at. Even though Chicago fans might not like that, because if they finish there, they're not making the playoffs. So yeah, definitely going to be interesting to see how they do this year. All right, so another team I'm going to try to keep short and sweet. The Cleveland Cavaliers. Last season, they finished 57-25, and obviously, as everyone knows, they won the title. They finished 3rd in offense, 9th in defense. Great numbers. And This offseason, they added Birdman, and Chris Anderson. They also added Markel Brown, Dunleavy, John Holland, and Eric Moreland. And they lost Timofey, Deli, Mo Williams, and Sasha Khan. I thought they lost Dante Jones, but I guess he's not. I've seen him out in the preseason, so, But and they also drafted Kay Felder, who I actually like, and I think he's going to be Kyrie's backup. Taking a look at their starting lineup, same group, Kyrie, JR, LeBron, K-Love, and Tristan Thompson. 21 Shump Street coming off the bench. Channing Frye too. We can also look for Richard Jefferson, Mike Dunleavy, and even Birdman too to get some minutes. But yeah, we know what to expect with the Cavs. They're going to make the playoffs. They're going to go deep in the playoffs, potentially back to the finals. And to them, it doesn't matter where they finish in the East as long as they make the playoffs. A lot of people are saying, can LeBron win the MVP this year? Like this and that, chasing the Jordan ghost. But it's all just depends on how many games he plays. Like I said, they know they're going to make the playoffs, and then the best chance they have to win the playoffs is if they're healthy. So my bet is that LeBron plays hard in the beginning, so that way they get where they need to be as long as they guarantee that they're going to be in the playoffs, and then from there, he might take it easy, less minutes, maybe even sit some games. But I do like Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love playing a lot better this season. They're going to be last year. They both of them came off of injuries, and so this season they had a full off season to get back into game shape and do their normal routines and stuff. So look for them to play a lot better this year, in my opinion. And yeah, Cavs won't have anything to worry about. They'll be fine this season, and look for them to potentially be in the finals again this season. All right, now we have Detroit basketball. We got the Pistons. Another team finished 44-38. This is getting kind of weird now, if you ask me. But last year they finished 15th on offense and 23rd on defense. This is not too great, especially considering a team that a lot of internet people are looking to consider them like the Timberwolves of the East. Even though I don't see it, because they only added guys like John Lure, Ish Smith, and Boban, while they lost Jody Meeks, Spencer Dinwiddie, and Anthony Tolliver, and they drafted Henry Ellenson and Michael Jabinje. Sorry about that. Like I said, a lot of internet people have the Pistons as one of the, sleeper, dark horse, team that makes the next big leap coming out of the East. And like I said, comparing them to the Timberwolves, but in the Eastern Conference. But I don't see it, and neither does Vegas, because Vegas only has them winning 45 games. And if you take a look at their starting lineup, I mean, how do you look at that? How do you look at this rotation and tell me that this wins? This is one of the top teams in the East. Reggie Jackson's going to miss the start of the season, but he is going to be the starter when he comes back. I like KCP and Stanley Johnson. They played really well last season for how young they are, and then but I look for them to take the leap and be even more effective for the Pistons this season. And I've always liked Tobias Harris, even though he's been bouncing around the last couple of seasons. He's a prototypical swingman, a 3-and-D type guy who, can go down low too and get you some buckets if he needs. And also, Marcus Morris was a great addition for them in the middle of the season last year. Again, he brings a toughness to the team, and he can, bang down low, but if he needs to, he can stretch it out and shoot some threes. And Andre Drummond, as everyone knows, he was really dominant at the start of last season. He was averaging 20 and 20 at one point, but cooled off towards the end, but, was still effective and still dominant. But, just the rest of the bench, other than Stanley Johnson, I mean, Ish Smith, Reggie Bullock, John Lure, Aaron Baines, I just don't see them being one of the top teams in the East. Maybe they can squeak into the 8th seed like they did last season, but yeah, that's about as far as I think they'll go. They do still have Stan Van, who's going to still want to try to build some fucking walls. But yeah, I mean, there's not much else to say for me. I see Detroit finishing this season the same way they finished last season, squeaking their way into the playoffs as one of the lower seeds and probably getting bounced in the early rounds. All right, and next up we got the Indiana Pacers, who last year finished 45-37. Offensively, only ranked 25th in the NBA, but defensively ranked 3rd. So even though they weren't scoring any points, they weren't giving up any either, so that helped balance that out. Pretty busy offseason for them too. They added Jeff Teague, Big Al, Thad Young, Aaron Brooks, Kevin Seraphin, and Jeremy Evans, while losing the Hill gang. They lost George Hill, Solomon Hill, Jordan Hill, as well as Ty Lawson and Jan Mahimi, and they drafted George Niang. Now we have our first team where I am in complete disagreement with Vegas. They have them winning the same amount of games they won last year. I actually think the Pacers will do much better this season than they did last year. And I actually think they'll be one of the top teams in the East. Look for them to be potentially the 2 seed, maybe even the 1 seed if the Cavs, decide to put it in cruise control towards the end and, don't really care about how many wins they have. And if you take a look at the rotation, you can clearly see they addressed the fact that they finished 25th in offense last year. Adding Jeff Teague, who was pretty much George Hill with a little bit better offense. Still got Monte. As we all know, Paul George was a beast for them last year. He finished averaging 23, 7, and 4, and look for him to have an even better season this year, coming off of a full off season. As we all know, he had the nasty leg break a couple seasons ago, but he's looking healthy, he's looking good, and look for him to have a great season this year again. And they added Thad Young. He's going to start right away. He single-handedly was winning some games for the Nets last year, and he's a great pickup in my opinion for them. Can really score the ball on offense. And, he can also add a little defense down low when he wants to. So they got rid of Roy Hibbert and slid Miles Turner in, who in my opinion obviously wasn't the rookie of the season, but he was in my opinion one of the more surprisingly good rookies last year. As a rookie, he finished with 10 points, 6 rebounds, mainly coming off the bench. But, throughout the season saw his minutes go up and really impressed the team. Obviously impressive enough to get the starting job over a vet like Big Al. But, I think it's smart. People are saying, this and that, like it's a diss towards Big Al having him on the bench. But I think it's really smart. They weren't, they had no depth at big man in the last couple seasons. But adding Big Al down low, coming off the bench, man, he can just eat the, backup defenders alive, Everyone knows Big Al can, score the bucket with both hands, both sides, doing all kinds of things. Aaron Brooks too, he can score. He can come off everywhere he's been. He's been just that, that spark off the bench. He just, light it up, put up, 8-9 points in, limited minutes. And yeah, still, they still have CJ Miles. They still got Rodney Stuckey. And, even though they lost Frank Vogel, who was a defensive-minded coach, as you can tell, finishing third in defense, they promoted Nate McMillan, who essentially still follows the same philosophies as Frank Vogel, defense first, and just with this new offensive minded personnel that they added, I think they'll definitely do better than they did last season. They're going to be really fun to watch. And like I said, don't be surprised if you see them as one of the top seeds in the East. All right, now we have the Miami Heat, who, again, another team finishing 48 and 34. Last year they finished 13th on offense, 10th on defense, and they added Dion Waiters. They added Wayne Ellington also, James Johnson, Luke Babbitt, and Derek Williams. And as everyone knows, it's the end of an era. They lost D Wade. Gonna still be weird seeing D Wade not in a Heat jersey, but it was time for them. And then they also lost Luol Deng, Joe Johnson, Gerald Green, and Amari, and didn't draft anyone. Again, I'm in violent agreement with Vegas on how many wins they think they're gonna have this year. They have them only winning 34.5, which means even if they take the over, that's only 35, which is nowhere close to making the playoffs. And if we take a look at their starting rotation, you can clearly see why. So they still have Goran Dragic, who I like, but then they're going to throw Dion Waiters in the starting lineup right now. I think Josh Richardson's hurt, and when he comes back, look for him to be, get more minutes and probably be the starter. Justice Winslow, good upside as a defender, but just, still got to work on his offense. Derek Williams, journeyman. I kind of like his game, but just, he's a journeyman, what can you say about that? And I get the whole Hassan Whiteside thing, yeah, he's great. He was good off the bench. He had a really high PER. He was getting the rebound, the blocks, the dunks, and all those highlight plays. But I mean, there was a reason why teams didn't want to throw money at him because he's had some issues in the past, as well as some on the court issues. Fighting and starting stuff and stuff like that. And another big question mark, as you can see, is the health of Chris Bosh. It always sucks when a player can't go out on his own terms, especially for something like this. I feel for Bosh wanting to play, but at the same time, it's like, he has a legit potential of dying if he plays. So I understand the Heat not wanting to take a risk and take a chance playing Bosh and having something, catastrophic like Chris Bosh actually dying while playing basketball fall in their hands. So hopefully he can, figure a way to get healthy. Because like I said, it sucks. And especially because he has so many years of basketball left in him. Yeah, man, it's tough. And, whether they have him or not is greatly going to affect how they do. I'm pretty sure he's not going to play at all this season, which again, like I said, really sucks. Not just as a basketball fan, but for, the basketball in general. And also for the Heat, because, he's such a key component for their team. both offensively and defensively. Because I mean, look who else they have as their backups. UD. Like Udonis Haslem. He's about in his late 40s now. Josh McBob, Luke Babbitt, like James Johnson. I mean, they're mediocre at best, and some teams are saying they can hang around and this and that, but I just don't see it. Which brings me to this point: the Heat have to make a choice this year. Do you try to compete in the East? Considering you always have a chance, it is the East. Or do you just say fuck it and tank? Because I mean, just look at this team. Like I said, on one hand, it is the East, and you're always gonna have a chance in the East. Because it's just a whole bunch of mediocre basketball. But on the other hand, this is the perfect time to take the opportunity to try to get a new identity, establish a new team philosophy, and all this and that. With the D Wade moving on and potentially Chris Bosh moving on, but you have Pat Riley who will say screw that, we're not losing for anything, and you got a coach like Spo who doesn't like to lose either. They got quite a dilemma on their hands. In my opinion, I think they should tank, but I don't think they will try to, and they'll try to win. Maybe if they realize that it's a lost season, they'll change their mind, but we'll just have to wait and see. All right, now we got, in my opinion, the biggest disappointment of last season. A lot of so-called experts and analysts had the Bucks, being one of the top teams in the East last season, and as you can see, they weren't. They only won 33 games and lost 49 last season. They finished 26th on offense and 24th on defense, bottom of the league. And this offseason, they added Deli, Jason Terry, Teletovic, and Michael Beasley, while losing O.J. Mayo, Jared Bayless, Tyler Ennis, and Grievous Vasquez. And they drafted Thonmaker, who may or may not be 40 years old, and Malcolm Brogdon. So yeah, like I said, big disappointment last season for the Bucks. A lot of people had them, a lot of people gassed them up and saying that this was their year to take the leap. A lot of people have been saying that for the last couple seasons, that they'll get better. But then last year was the year that people said they were going to take the big leap and didn't. It's like now everyone's just saying screw it. Tired of picking the Bucks. They got to show me something first, and Vegas is in agreement with that, as they only have them winning 35.5 games, about 2 to 3 games more than they did the season before. This year is definitely going to be an experiment, because if we take a look at this roster, even though I have Deli at the 1, the Greek freak Giannis Antetokounmpo is going to be the predominant ball handler for this team. Like I said, definitely going to be an experiment, a work in progress, just to see what's going on, because he's got a world of talent, and we're just going to have to wait and see. It's going to be definitely interesting to watch. Definitely a top league pass team. And to go along with Giannis, they're going to also have Jabari Parker, Greg Monroe, Chris Middleton. As everyone knows, he's out for a good while, but as soon as he comes back healthy, he'll definitely be the starter. I'm not sure who's going to start in his place. Maybe Rashad Vaughn or old Jason Terry. But I mean, if you take a look at this bench, it's generally the same team. They still have John Henson. They still got Miles Plumlee, and the addition of Thonmaker makes them even more of the tallest team in the league. It's kind of strange. The league is trying to going in this direction of getting smaller and quicker, and more, while also staying athletic. But the Bucks are doing the exact opposite. They're getting taller, leaps and bounds taller than everyone else, whilst also staying athletic. So as much as the Giannis at point guard thing is going to be a project, so will Thonmaker. I mean, he's got, if you watch all his hoop mixtape highlights and stuff like that, he's definitely got a whole lot of talent too, but you just, you got to see if he can put it together at the pro level. I don't see this team doing any better than they did last season. Look for them to be right around the same. Maybe they'll win a game or two extra. Who knows? But yeah, I just don't see them making the playoffs. And like I said before, a lot of people have been burned by them, by picking them to be a better team in the past. And it's just time for them to show everyone for once. All right, and now we have probably the most interesting team to look out for this upcoming season out of the East, the New York Knicks. Last year they finished 32-50, finishing 24th in offense and 18th in defense. But none of that really matters because of the moves they made this offseason. As many of us know, they added Derrick Rose and Joakim Noah, but they also got Brandon Jennings, Courtney Lee, Justin Holiday, and here we go, Mindaugas Kuzminskis. Sorry about that if I butchered that. And they also lost Robin Lopez, Aaron Aflalo, Langston Galloway, Jerian Grant, Kevin Seraphin, Derek Williams, and Jose Calderon. And they also drafted Willie Hernan Gomez. Now, a lot of people are really, really high on the Knicks. And for obvious reasons, they brought in some pretty big names. Also made a coaching change with Jeff Hornacek. But I personally think that they won't do as well as everyone thinks they will. And as you can see, Vegas agrees with me. They have been winning a few more games than they did last season at 40.5. But even then, that's not enough to get into the Eastern Conference playoffs. As we all know, the Bulls finished with 42 wins last year and didn't make the playoffs. So now let's take a look at the starting rotation. So we got, obviously, Derrick Rose has slid into the starting point guard, but don't be surprised if Brandon Jennings becomes the starter or gets more minutes in crunch time. I personally think Brandon Jennings is going to have a great season this year. He's already looked pretty well in the preseason, and he's also got a really big fan base in New York already, pretty early. And another player to watch out for this season that I think is going to have a lot bigger of an impact than people think is Courtney Lee. He did pretty well for the Hornets last year, being a good perimeter shooter as well as playing some pretty good defense, but he's really going to be most effective with his ability to shoot both mid-range and from three. Melo is still Melo. He can say what he wants, that he still cares about hooping and this and that, but I just don't believe him. But, of course, he still loves basketball, and that's obvious. Anyone in the NBA still loves basketball, but it's just, if he really cared about winning, he would have left New York a long time ago. And, his whole argument is that he has, he's like, oh, look at the guys we got. We got Joakim now. We got Derrick Rose now. And, the emergence of the Zinger, the Latvian gangbanger, Kristaps, who I think will have a pretty good season this year. I don't think he's going to take a huge step and be one of the, the top 10, top 15 players in the league, but he's going to definitely be a lot better from his already, pretty damn good rookie season. I have him at the 4 and Noah at the 5, but they're going to interchange. Noah can do some things at the top of the key while Zinger can get down low and maybe score, and vice versa. They can have Joakim down low, and as we all know, Kristaps is can shoot it from downtown. But my main concern for this team is just their bench. Just other than Brandon Jennings, they really don't have anyone. They still got Sasha, who whatever. But then, Lance Thomas, Kyle LeQuinn, Justin Holiday. I know they like Hernan Gomez, even though he's a rookie, but still, it's like, it's you got to have depth unless, you're the Cleveland Cavs and you have, guys like LeBron, Kyrie, and Kevin Love, which the Knicks do not have. And so while I think, they'll be okay this upcoming season, I don't think they're going to be as good as everyone thinks. But then I also, on the flip side, don't think they'll be as bad as some people think, that they're just still going to stay the same. I think they're going to do better, just not. I think they'll do better, but just not great. But do look for them to make the playoffs. I think they'll be in that 6, 7, 8 range in the Eastern Conference playoff seeding, which is definitely an upgrade from how they've been the last couple of seasons. But like I said, definitely could be interested in seeing them. And I know I was kind of downplaying Rose and Noah, but having a lot of veterans, really good for the playoff experience. And yeah, wouldn't be surprised if they made a little noise, and based on where they seed, if they're not playing like the Cavs or the Pacers, they might sneak their way into the second round of the playoffs. Who knows? All right, next up we got the Orlando Magic, who last year finished 35-47, ranked towards the bottom in offense at 23rd, right in the middle of the pack in the defense at 16th, and they definitely had quite the offseason. They added Serge Ibaka, Jeff Green, C.J. Wilcox, Bismack Biyombo, DJ Augustine, Jody Meeks, Cliff Alexander, and Damjan Rudez. But at the same time, they lost Victor Oladipo, Brandon Jennings, Ersan Ilyasova, Shabazz Napier, Jason Smith, Andrew Nicholson, Devin Marble, and D-Wade Dedman, while also drafting Stephen Zimmerman. Now, this is definitely one of the most interesting rosters, as you can see. So as everyone knows, they let go of their former number 2 overall pick in Victor Oladipo, who I'm surprised that they let him go. I thought he was playing pretty well, but they think they can hand the keys over to Elfrid Payton to run this offense. He's a great ball handler, plays pretty good defense, kind of built in the Rondo mold, where he's known for his ball handling and defense, but offense is still a work in progress. Evan Fournier, reliable kind of guy that you could just, if you need him, catch and shoot, kind of stuff like that, moving around off the ball, that kind of thing. He's pretty good in that role. But the main thing, to make room for Serge Ibaka and Bismack Biyombo and Nikola Vucevic, they're putting Aaron Gordon at the 3. Now, I think Aaron Gordon is athletic enough to get the job done at the 3. However, I just don't think he has the shooting ability yet. I know I've seen him working it on the offseason. He's working on his corner threes and his ball handling and all that stuff. he can definitely jump out of the gym, as we all saw in the dunk contest last season. And his length is definitely going to be a positive for him on the defense side of the ball, pause. But man, it's definitely going to be a work in progress for him to get used to guarding, guys like LeBron, guys like Paul George, Tobias Harris, Chris Middleton, those type of guys. Those are the guys he's going to have to go up against. And it's definitely going to be a learning curve, especially because he's still pretty young. But we'll have to see how that goes. And then, like I said, Serge Ibaka, Bismack Biyombo. I mean, I guess really. I mean, Serge, I get more than Bismack. Serge was such a pivotal player for the Thunder for so many years, But within recent years, he kind of slowly progressed his way out towards the perimeter, which I don't understand why, considering his nickname was Ibaka and stuff. But maybe they'll keep him in that role. I'm not sure. Vucevic, walking double-double. I have no worries about him. But who knows? Maybe they might move him. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see, because they gave Bismack Biyombo a ton of money, which I do not understand. Yeah, sure, he had a pretty good playoffs, but I mean, what, 5-6 good games is gonna override the fact that he had 5 or 6 horrible seasons before, this last playoffs. I mean, if you remember going back, he was supposed to be the next Dikembe, if you really. But he just turned out to be a bust, and had all the low lights of him airballing free throws and airballing missing shots and stuff like that. But we'll just have to see. They're gonna try to go with the Twin Towers, I guess. And then they got Frank Vogel, who I like as a coach. So as weird as this roster may be, and as much as I don't trust their, the front office of the Magic, I do trust Frank Vogel. I don't think they're going to win a whole lot of games. I mean, they'll be right towards the middle bottom of the East. I don't think they're making the playoffs. I'm getting right to it. But I think, if anyone can figure out how to make this roster work, it's going to be Frank Vogel. But as good of a coach as Frank Vogel is, I don't think he's enough to help him, the Magic be as successful as people want them to be. All right, so next up we got the Philadelphia 76ers, who finished dead last in the league with a record of 10-72, bottom of the league in both offense and defense, very last, 30th in offense and 26th in defense. So they added Jared Bayless, Joe Henderson, and Sergio Rodriguez, but they lost Ish Smith, Isaiah Canaan, Kendall Marshall, and Christian Wood, and they drafted the number 1 overall pick, Ben Simmons. They're one of their top picks from a couple years ago, who spent some time in Turkey, and Dario Saric, and Timothé Luwawu Cabarro, I think, or Cabarrot, sorry, and Furkan Korkmaz, who I've never heard of either. So Vegas has them at 25.5. I don't know if they've taken into consideration the fact that Ben Simmons is hurt, but I don't like them to win that many games, even if they had Ben Simmons. But if you take a look at their roster, as you know, they have Ben Simmons. He's going to be, I got him at the 3 right now, but he's going to be the primary ball handler, I'm assuming, for the team when he comes back healthy, which they should not rush him. Anytime you have a foot injury, don't rush it back. We saw what happened with KD. Sixer fans, just be patient. I know we had to go through the whole trust the process with Hinkie and all, and Hinkie's gone, so you got to figure, don't trust the process anymore, yada yada. But be patient with Simmons. Don't rush him back. You don't want him having a nagging foot injury for the rest of his career. All right, now, so they added Gerald Bayless and Gerald Henderson, who are, proven vets, been around the league a few times, but Gerald Henderson, they can finally get some stability in the backcourt, and there it is, the young front court with Jahlil Okafor, who led the team in scoring last season, and Nerlens Noel, who, just a defensive specialist down low, and also finally making his debut, technically as a rookie, Joel Embiid, who has looked like the 2016 version of Hakeem Olajuwon in the preseason. Again, it is just the preseason, but man, he looks good. He's still got a little ways to go. He's probably going to get himself into game shape as the season goes along, especially for this being his first full NBA season. And look for him to make a big impact on the team, assuming he can stay healthy. And also look out for Dario Saric to have an impact too. He might get a little bit more playing time than they thought, especially with Ben Simmons being out, but he's definitely not someone that they should sleep on either. And throw the rotating cast in there. They got Jeremy Grant, Robert Covington, Nick Stauskas, and Hollis Thompson. Who knows if they'll be there at the end of the season? You know how the Sixers work. It's kind of a rotating door for as far as guys coming in off the bench and stuff like that. But yeah, definitely going to be another interesting team out of the East. They won't be good, but they're definitely going to be a must-watch just to see how all these young picks who, were as a result of the whole trust the process mentality from Sam Hinkie, like I said, can pan out. I mean, I still think they're a ways away, but you got to start somewhere, and they've got their four top picks from the last 4 seasons, finally all on the court together. So just gonna have to see how they do, and not expecting much from them. You can literally only go up from here as for how considering how bad they've been over the last few seasons. So definitely going to be interested in watching the series this season, even though they're probably not going to be that good. All right, now we got the Toronto Raptors, who last year did better than I didn't realize that they won 56 games. I knew that they were a top seed, but like I said, I didn't realize that they won 56 games. They finished 56-26, fourth in offense and 11th in defense. And they added Jared Sullinger while losing Bismack Biyombo, Louis Scola, James Johnson, and Jason Thompson. They also drafted Jacob Poeltl and Pascal Siakam. Now, I think last year, if there was a year for the Raptors to do it, it would have been last year, even though we all knew that they wouldn't. They just seemed to be peaking at the right time. Everybody was playing well. They had Lowry and DeRozan were both all-stars. But I just don't think they got better, if you ask me. And neither did Vegas, because they have them at 50.5 wins. So, I mean, if we take a look at their starting rotation, they're pretty much going with the same guys. They're pretty much switching out Scola and getting younger with Jared Sullinger. I mean, you're essentially going to get the same kind of production from Sullinger as you got from Scola, but pretty much it's the same team. I mean, you got Lowry and DeRozan in the backcourt. You got DeMar Carroll, at the 3, and you got Jonas down low, another walking double-double. And he's still the same bench crew too. Corey Joseph, Patrick Patterson, Terrence Ross, Powell. Look for Bebe to get some more minutes too. A lot of Lucas Nogueira, a lot of buzz from him in the last couple seasons, and he's been getting a lot more PT in preseason. So yeah, watch for him this year too. Like I said, they didn't really make a whole lot of moves in this offseason, so that's kind of leading me to think that there's a trade coming, whether it's with Terrence Ross or Patrick Patterson, maybe even Corey Joseph. I don't know. Shoot, it might even be someone like Valanciunas or who knows. I just, anytime you don't make any moves in the offseason, it's kind of a hint to me that something might happen during the season. I'm pretty sure they're going to base it on how well they do or not do this season. If, they are kind of, hitting a wall, looking a little mediocre during, closer to the trade deadline, don't be surprised if they look to move someone who, they feel that they can get some value out of. And whether they make a move or not, I kind of like this team around the same as where they were. They're going to be at the top of the Eastern Conference because, the Eastern Conference isn't that great. But that's just still not discrediting the fact that Toronto's still a pretty good team. But, we all know that the Cavs are the best in the East. And I think they're right up there at the top of the East with, the Pacers, the Celtics, the Hawks. And, look for them to, go deep in the playoffs again. And I don't know if they can beat the Cavs, but, we'll have to wait and see. And last but not least, we have the Washington Wizards, who finished dead even last season with 41-41. They were 20th on offense, 14th in defense, and they added Jan Mahimi, Andrew Nicholson, Jason Smith, and Johnny O'Bryant, while losing Allen Anderson, Nene, Jared Dudley, Ramon Sessions, Garrett Temple, and Drew Gooden. And they also drafted Thomas Satoransky. They also have a new coach in Scotty Brooks, who did okay in OKC. They made the playoffs every season, but who wouldn't make the playoffs when you got Russ, KD, Harden, Serge, and the other guys they had there. But he just couldn't get it done with those guys. And if he couldn't get it done with KD and Russ, two of the top 5 players in the league, and with Harden too, who became one of the top 5 players, another top 5 player in the league, what makes you think he's going to get it done with this starting lineup? John Wall's an all-star. We all know that. But Bradley Beal, come on, they gave him a huge contract, a max contract, when, he's always injured. When I first saw the over-under, I was like, is that the over-under for the team, or is that the over-under for how many games Bradley Beal's going to play this season? He's got bones of glass and skin of paper, you know what I mean? So, we'll have to wait and see. Obviously they felt he was worth the money, but yeah, like I said, we're just going to have to wait and see. And then they still got Otto Porter. Markieff Morris was another good pickup for them. And mid-season last season, he brings a good toughness for them to go along with freaking the Polish hammer Marcin Gortat. Watch out, man! I dare you to try to find a tougher front court than Markieff Morris and Marcin Gortat. But that's about where the talent stops. Because look at this bench. They got Kelly Oubre, who was okay last year. Trey Burke, same thing. Jan Mahimi, Jason Smith, too good. Solid. off the bench, big men to just help, set picks, grab rebounds, and play a little bit of defense, but nothing that really stands out. And like I said, people are trying to say that, Scotty Brooks can help get them a few more wins, but I mean, I just don't, like I said, I just don't really see it. I mean, he couldn't get it done with OKC and that stacked lineup, and so what makes you think he's going to get it done with his lineup? Vegas has her over at 43, and like I said, I don't know if it's going to be 43 or not, but I do have them finishing just about the same, and honestly, maybe a little worse, depending on if they can get used to Scotty Brooks' system. Also, don't be surprised if you start hearing some rumblings from John Wall. He's already a sneaker free agent. He's wearing a lot of Jordans, so shout out to him. But he is a free agent after this season, I believe, or he has an option or something like that. But he can leave after the season if he wants. And yeah, don't be surprised if he has a really good season because he's trying to play for a new contract from another team. Yeah, it's going to be tough being a Wizards fan. Who knows if they're going to make the playoffs? I don't, certainly. And if they do, it's going to be in the 8th seed or one of the low seeds, or they're just going to miss it. But yeah, look for them to be about as mediocre as they were last season. All right, so that was the Eastern Conference. Yeah, pretty straightforward. The East is always about what it is. The Cavs are at the top, and it's pretty much everyone else. The same rotating cast is going to be between 2 and 8. You got the Pacers, the Celtics, the Raptors, the Pistons, but also look for some maybe some new faces in the playoffs. We might see the Bulls back in it. Maybe we'll see the Knicks too. Who knows? Definitely gonna be an interesting season for the East. But like I said, I do like the Cavs being at the top of the East again. Any team that has LeBron, they're usually gonna be at the top, and the rest of the guys like Kyrie, Kevin Love, they're pretty good too. So. But I want to know how you guys think this is going to do this year. If you agree with me or disagree with me, let me know in the comments below. And if you like what you heard, make sure you like, subscribe, share, comment, all that good stuff. And go ahead and give me a follow down in the ats and everything that's in the bio below. And make sure you check out my Western Conference preview, as well as who I think is going to win the titles and the awards and all that stuff. So, like always, catch you guys in the next one. Peace.